and I'm going to hand over to Sheila.
Thank you very much, Anna. I'm so delighted to be with all of you. My name is Sheila Cook, and I'm the hub leader for 3LM, which stands for Land and Livestock Management for Life. And I'm really delighted to be part of this presentation by Bracken Morris and Vicky Palmer called Moving a Flerd Long Distance. And you can see their farm and their animals here in the background in North Yorkshire. So what are we doing today? We're going to have some brief introductions. We're going to actually watch a clip. That's the starting place of a long distance move of animals. And I got to be there. I got to film it. It was very exciting. And those are all the people and dog who participated in the move. Then we're going to ask you a question or two, and then Bracken is going to have us watch the video again, but this time with commentary, commenting on what's going on and kind of responding to your questions, that kind of thing. Then they're going to give you some tips. How do you move a Flerd? And there'll be time for Q&A. We'll have several times for Q&A. And at the end, we're going to have a session where you get to brainstorm some solutions to your own challenges and even get some input from Bracken and Vicky on what you're thinking about. And we'll do a debrief at the end. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Bracken and Vicky to give an introduction to themselves.
Hello everyone, thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We have a lot of fun moving our Flerd, and I hope we can pass some of that enthusiasm and confidence on to you. So Bracken and I have been at this farm for 3 years now, first generation farmers. We both had other careers whilst coming towards farming, and it's a really interesting journey, especially since we met Christopher and Sheila at 3LM. We feel we belong to a community now, and there's a lot of vibrancy, a lot of activity, and a lot of positive things happening that we are so pleased to be part of. And I hope you feel the same way as well, if you would like to join in ever. So we've been here 3 years now. It was a pig farm. We don't have pigs, so it's gradually going over to livestock and sheep and chickens. And we're learning a lot along the way. We have some great steps forward and then steps back, but I'm sure that happens for everybody, and they're really good learning points. And so we're learning all the time, which we love. So I'm going to hand over to Bracken to explain a little bit about how he got into farming too, and then we look forward to doing the presentation for you.
Hello and welcome everybody. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to do this with a great thanks to the Northern Farming Conference and Sheila. So yeah, as Vicky said, I'm a first generation farmer. Farming was in the family but got finished and all shut down before I was just on the point of me being born. So it was in the blood. Growing up, I had a huge interest, worked to gain experience on a vast array of farms and to gain my knowledge, both livestock work and fencing work, through the whole array of things that goes on in a farming life. But all that time I was continuously being talked out of it by my parents and one of the farmers that I worked on for quite a while. Basically, it was just no future in it, no money in it. So why would you want to come into it? But anyway, I'm quite determined and dogmatic, and I won't get steered if I decide I want to do something. But having a little bit of sense in me somewhere along the line, I did go into the oil industry and worked in that for 8 years. At which point, after that, I went on my own in the same industry, but also started with one Hereford heifer, a maiden heifer. And just built up and grew from there. I'd had responsibility of my own livestock prior to that, and I had a huge interest in trying to research everything as nature would do it. And it's just a thing of mine. I just look at if I have a problem, it goes back to what would nature do, and try and just think the scenario through, whatever that may be. never had any time for drugs or chemicals, either onto the land or onto the livestock. So we built up and learned a lot of little ways of doing things by myself. I didn't have any help as such. I don't like the reliance on other people, or I didn't as much then, until I met Vicky 7 years ago, and that just boosted my life no end, and with a great interest to run with somebody. So and now once we got in connection with 3LM and Christopher and Sheila, and it's just, as I said, just stepped it up the next level again, and we're just on a constant learning curve. A lot of what I've learned, as I say, is just through direct knowledge. I've never been to agricultural college. I always try and think of things through in the actual animal's mind. As some people say, I'm very intuitive as to the animals, and just work. So some things I can't tell you why I would do that, like a last minute scenario when we're actually moving something. It just comes, something just, I need to do that, or that needs to be done. So
Thank you both. Thank you. All right, let's have you tell about the Flerd's journey that we're going on today.
So this is our biggest lump of rented land, but as you can see, the blue outlined fields, that is our 3 separate actually dales, and we run. We start on the top far left hand of the screen, and follow through the yellow lines. Coming down from the little point in the top right hand side of that field, then that comes down through a little narrow track. Where Sheila's doing the green line now.
So you want me up here on the top, don't you?
Yeah, up in that top left hand corner, Sheila.
Am I in the right place here?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
So we start the Flerd there. They actually do that left-handed field from to the left of that green dot. So we have 8 paddocks in that unit. The actual bare ground section in the middle is a part of a ELS scheme that the farmer's in. So that's a separately fenced area. We haven't got access to that. Then we come back. We walk them back across the yellow line. Following that yellow line. And then they work through the front dale, which we have 19 moves in there, until they come to the very far right hand end of that dale. And then we walk them back and up to the yellow line, follow that through, which that's going through a wood. And this is a bridle way, and which also runs across the bottom of the front field as well. There's the right of way. Then they come into what we call the far dale, the biggest lump, and then work it from that point. So we actually, as the field is there that we are now, where Sheila's got the green mark, the left hand part of the field is the low ground, which is around about 90 metres above sea level, and we'll go right up to 200 plus metres above sea level in a very short distance. So it's very, very steep is the bank. So we work our electric fencing from top to bottom, and the move in the sections. So we have I say another 19 sections fields in that area. Reason why we have just the same amount in that one, with the grazing is poorer in that area, so we have to give them a bit more space. So once we're at the far right hand corner of that field, then we have to bring them right back to the start again. So that creates as our 1.6 mile journey, back through the base of that dale, back through the bridle way, through the wood, and then we turn hard left. So we block off that right of way, and then come back across the front dale, and then we start back at the beginning again.
Quite a journey.
It's nice.
All right, let's take it to the next slide here. All right, this is your chance now to start using Mentimeter. And so on your Mentimeter, I've got mine open here. You're going to put in the code. See, you get a little prompt for a code, and I'll put in 4672557. You can see it on the top of my screen up here, 4672557. Click submit, and then that gives you this actual question. And if you want to do this on your phone, you just type in www.menti.com. It's right up here. The URL is right there, and then put in that code. And then you should get that question. And the question is, are you moving livestock at the moment or planning to in the near future? And we're getting some responses here. You can see it's adapting live as you change your answers. It's quite interesting. A lot of people are not moving livestock at the moment. Very interesting. So I think a lot of real learners here coming to be with us today. So thank you for responding to that question. So this is the turning point. You know, I think I'll show you where it is. This is where I stood as the Flerd came out of the woods, and I'll just back up and show you. Is that right here? Can you see my mouse? Is that where we are?
That's correct, Sheila. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're what, like 3/4 of the way moved, or 2/3 of the way by then?
Yeah, so to 2/3 of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, so people are looking a little tired as they come by. What we're going to do then is watch this clip and be thinking about what questions you have. I'm going to stop it there because we're going to watch it again. And what I'm going to switch over to now is back to the slideshow. There we go. Just a few button clicks and we're there. So let's see here. What we'd like you to tell us now that you've gotten a flavor for it, tell us, what is your greatest concern about moving livestock? And you can do that in the Mentimeter. And if for some reason you can't get into the Mentimeter, that's quite all right, because there's a chat feature here in Zoom. So another way for you to do it would be to simply type into Zoom. But if you're needing to figure out how to get into the Mentimeter again, it's www.menti.com. You just put that into your Safari or Google, and then the code is 4672557. So what is your greatest concern about moving livestock? And then that will help inform Bracken and Vicky about what you'd like to learn about today.
What's your greatest concern?
Bracken and Vicky, do you ever get snow like this where you are?
We do, yes. Our first winter at Acklam was, we had, that was a challenging winter. So around about 4 or 5 inches, but just the terrain that we're on just means no four-wheel drive, no tractor can get out. That's it, you're in.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do differently when you're in snow, when you're moving livestock?
Well, for us, as we're coming on to say later on, we don't possess a quad bike. So for me, it's just carry on the same. If it means walking, it means walking. It's just a bit further, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we aren't stopped by anything really.
Okay, great. Well, I think we've got enough answers. I'm going to start revealing them. Let's see, how come, there we go. Sorry about that. Let's see, so enough labor, animal welfare and public safety, roads, crossroads, people, gardens, pub gardens, enough people to help. Labor, losing calves, lambs from the Flerd, getting the right balance between what nature would do and directing the animals to where you need them to be. My bour sheep are very good moving between adjacent fields, but there is a public road through the farm open to moorland, so dare not risk that since no way to contain them on road and fear escapees onto the moor. We frequently move stock, sheep and cattle, both along country roads and across the farm with a lot of public access. My main concern is third something. I can't read that last one. Third party damage and accidents. There, we got it. Okay, I think we've got all of those now. Thank you, everyone. What we're going to do now is watch the clip again, but with Bracken commenting. And you've heard the livestock, so this time I'm going to put them on mute so that we can hear Bracken. And let me just get this going here. How did that happen? Let's see. Okay, let me get adjusted here. Okay, I've got it all on mute now. And here we go. So Bracken, you can just get started anytime that you want.
Thank you. So this point here, this is the end of coming through the forest. We have utilised no fencing, no electric fencing or anything. So there's well, it's around about an 80-acre woodland. So they're just free to spread if they want into that woodland. We've done this numerous times now, and they never have. So it's in a pretty much dead L shape. So from the far day where they come from to where they're coming from now, there's a complete 90-degree bend, and then there's a right-of-way walkway which comes off about 45-degree. But as we turn them round there, we generally just park a vehicle just over 4x4, just block that right of access off. But we have done it without as well, and the follow around no problem. We'll come on to the reason why for that a little bit later on. The sheep actually hadn't done this move before, because we just in the past when we've grazed these 3 dales, it was just the cattle alone. So it was actually the first time the sheep did this full 1.6 mile back. The cattle had done it prior, as I say. What did surprise me was that the sheep was at the front. Normally the cattle are right tight up behind me, and I would have expected the sheep with the lambs tailing on behind, but they weren't. They came straight in up first on the outset. Can you just shut that down? Thank you. We have a little bit of a hesitation coming up because of the number of animals and a bit more spaced out, and we're turning them hard left-handed here, and then just as we come to the rise again, then we're turning them again. So I'm having to keep moving to keep the stock moving, but then they lost sight of me, and it's they're sort of going to fresh ground because of the association with myself. And then of course the fresh lush grass that there, and they'll just have a a snatch at that. Behind where Sheila stood now filming, coming up to the little picket gate on the left there, that's the bridleway which we've blocked off, and it's a very popular, busy route, so we're contending with people at that point. It's easier this way than it is in the early part of the move. We were lucky on this move as well that we had quite a number more people, which we'll come on to. Generally, it's just me and Vicky, you know, doing the move. So we just have to contend with the people as we come amongst them. So here we're getting the sheep are getting moving again. We have Martin from Denmark with Vicky bringing up the rear. I'm just trying to keep them moving that bit more. With our dog, but he's on a under control. But we'll come on to that in a little while. It's maybe a bit difficult to see, but up the right hand side, just off the point of the camera, then we have some electric fence put up just to create an alleyway, but there's no electric actually onto that.
So that fencing you just put up on the morning, didn't you?
That was, yeah, straight away on the morning, which that gives us the opportunity to walk the whole move prior to anything happening. So if anything's untoward, there's a lot of deadwood trees actually to the left hand side, so if we'd had some winds, anything like that had come down, we aren't suddenly coming across an obstacle. The way we've got Bert the bull, he generally does the chivalry thing and brings up the rear. When me and Vicky are on our own, then we let Bert, we just leave him be, and we just concentrate on the cows, calves, and the ewes and lambs. Bert will follow his ladies. We can leave him unless you're crossing a road. But in this scenario, when we aren't actually on a highway, then we will leave him, and he knows the route, and he'll just follow on, no problem at all. Tamsin, that's bringing up the rear, bringing up Bert. She just come to work with us, so learning the ropes, and she did very well. And it was slightly lame because on the far day, it must have been covering a cow and just come off pretty bad. But 3 days later, he was walking as sound as anything, with no intervention. This section where we're walking now is the only section which we put electric fence on. The dale that we've brought them out of, where they start off, we just utilise ourselves and the hard fence, the stock fencing on one side, to bring them round. We just contain them here because we're going around. There's so many bends, and we've had the grass on the rest period, and we don't want to disrupt too much of it for bringing them back onto for grazing. At this point here, this is where they go hard left-handed again, which works in our favour actually. I mean, it isn't planned out. We're having to work round the side of the wood, but stock, it's easier for them to move left-handed, turn left-handed than it is right-handed.
And that was a steep climb for them. They'd already walked quite a long way, and then that rise is quite steep, so they're a bit steadier going on there, having a bit of a rest and a bit of food along the way.
This must be good exercise for your livestock.
It is, aye. Keeps us fit too.
I can't remember what is left here. Do you want to keep watching? Oh, there, it stopped now.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right.
So there's one question in the chat, and I don't know when you want to speak to it, but Nat asks, how do you keep the livestock moving where you want when you get to the open pasture instead of them spreading out and grazing?
How do you keep them moving when you...
We put the electric fence up the side.
So in that one, we, as I say, on the the day that we set off moving them from, when we walk them across that, with it all being just grazed, to say the oldest paddock's 19 days old, then we risk moving them in the open. Because we move them every day, we get to that association with the stock, so that they know when they definitely see me, myself, and anything other activity, that they're getting moved to pastures new. So we open the electric fence up, or I will open it up, but stand as the barrier, and call them, and I can call them right up to myself and without moving off. So then when we do move off, they're following me very close and quite tight. And we do get the odd straggler go. Sometimes you even get a calf that will actually bolt straight past me. Then it realises it's on its own, and it'll generally come do a wide berth right the way around me, come back and join up again, and then we'll say, and I just ignore that and just keep on calmly, quietly moving on. When we come to the grass that we've rested more, we're shortly going to be coming on to grazing that, then we try to create the alleyway with some electric fence, and the respect that the cattle have been trained on it from birth, and so we don't put any electric onto it for that short time. We're keeping them moving, then we don't put any power onto it. It's just there as a deterrent. 3-strand electric fence, why not one? We were just, because of the sheep, we just went a bit overboard. We normally just run a couple, because that's what we've gone on to with the cattle. Just with the sheep, and it being their first move, we just put an extra one, and I think we still did actually have a lamb that further up after the film just bobbed out, and shortly after it was ran back through again.
Bracken, were you just responding to another question in the chat?
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Anna, let's have you, as they come in, you'll read the questions, and that way we get the question in the room as well. And
Okay.
yeah, thanks, Anna. Are there more questions right now?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's turn it back over to Bracken, talking about planning. How do you devise a plan to take on such a big move?
Again, I tried that day when we've decided that that's going to be the move, then that is, for me, it's concentration on that job. I won't have too much discussion about other things, because I actually run the move, the prior moves back through my mind, try and pick out any faults, errors on my part, something that I hadn't foreseen before, that we can improve on. So I start the planning process by just reiterating, going over, no matter how many times we do it, just go back over. There's always something, no matter how small, that will make everything more smoother, flowing, easier, both on them and ourselves. What helps with that plan is actually, say, when we get there, we're putting up some fencing, we get to walk that whole move prior, and that could just finalise the plan. The main things in the plan is taking into account your highways, your bridleways, right-of-ways, anything like that. The actual, should say, is the Fardale is Crowland, which is Crown right-of-way land, so that anybody can walk anywhere over that piece of land. We've never actually had to contend with somebody else, a member of the public, walking over that land when we've come to do a move. but it's just something else to be in the back of our mind, that when we're gathering up, when we're calling them, that there is a possibility that there is going to be somebody else that isn't aware of what's going on. And it's just a matter of making sure that that is then briefed, which will come in onto the team that's going to help.
It sounds like an engineering mindset to me.
Well, yes.
All right, and then tell us about preparation using fencing and what's available to create a walkway.
So yeah, we utilise a hard fence, as I call it, wherever possible. Purely because when I started, but there was a lot less numbers of stock, I was doing it by myself, and could be quite successful, barring a time or two. So we use whatever is available to your advantage. And the other advantage we've got is we're on very steep ground, so we'll actually bring them and walk them on the low side. So we've got the hard fence on the low side of them, and then they've got the bank against them, instead of the other way around. If you're walking on the top of the bank, they will, obviously it's easier, and they will run down the bank at an angle as well. They won't go straight down, they'll go at an angle, so they're actually going away from you and down at the same time. So it's just easier in the reverse, if that's an option. And then when they come into the wood, we're just literally using the line of sight, really. As I say, we put no fencing up in there at all. It is just the track, the walkway, and they have free access just to spread if they wanted to into the woodland. And it's a full canopied walkway, so that all they've got is a light to the end, and then we can just say what I will generally do is stand there and then bulk them up again, and then we'll set off again on the next angle. But there's no hard fencing utilised there, and then yeah, it's just and gather any labour up possible, but that can create you a bit more problem. Which will come on to that.
Preparation, opening and closing gates and crossing roads.
This is the interesting bit. People have probably had the same problems. You'll get a right of way or a bridle way, and of course it's code of conduct for the countryside. Keep the gates closed. Well, you can bet your blooming last dollar that when you want the gates closing, they'll leave them open, and when you go around and open them ready for a move, somebody will come through and close the gate behind you. Then when you come to the point of moving, where you're wanting to keep your stock moving, you come into a closed access. We were lucky in this instant that Sheila was actually stood on the point filming, so if there was anybody coming along that way, she could just have a nice little word with them, and that gate remained open.
Which I did. There were several groups of walkers, and I warned them what was coming.
Yeah. So that's the main thing. Once you've got that flow, you just need to avoid every possibility of it having to be stopped unduly. You're crossing the roads, that does take a bit more. You certainly can't be doing that yourself, and you certainly can't be doing it with two. You do need more people there. They need to be ahead of you and prepared. We don't actually use it. I only thought of it last night. What would actually be a very handy piece of equipment is shortwave, two-way radios, so you can just keep in communication with the person leading the stock to the people that's blocking the highway. You're legally allowed to block the highway for 20 minutes. Well, I haven't checked that actually for last year or two, but a few years back I did. And you can legally block it for 20 minutes with no notification to the highways or the police. But as long as it's well notified ahead of the blockage, as in some signs at the side of the road, and then vehicles with hazard lights on. So that needs to be kept to a minimum, so it doesn't want to be blocked off half an hour before. This whole move will take us around about an hour and a half from starting to gather up the stock to the actual final point. That's without our preparation work. So of course that's far too long for if we had to cross a road in this instance. So we need to, that's why I've just come up with the idea of the shortwave radios. I know mobiles are good, but by the time you get it out and unlock your phone, you find your contact, dial it, you're moving on quite a few, quite at a pace. Your shortwave radios, you're straight there and you're on it, right? Can I have the road blocked? And we're there. When you come to that point, everything's closed off and you've got your alleyway straight across the road or however it needs to be, and you can just, again, keep everything moving. It just makes your life so much easier.
So people are important.
They definitely are. Right, the briefing, this was my weakest point. When I started working with more people, which I've rapidly got improved on, because it makes everybody's life a lot more easier and stress-free. So at this point, we'd actually got everything rigged up. So we've got all our temporary fencing in position, and we're at the point where the destination point of the move. So now all 5 of us, well, 6 of us, Sheila was taking the photograph there, we'll walk all the way back. So again, we'll walk that full, we'll walk the full move again on ourselves, and I can just pick up on any points there and add to this brief. So this is roughly how I'm going to, or should I say how I envisage the move going to be, and sort of what, there has to be a leader of the situation. So then of what I expect of everybody, and then they know what is expected of them. And it just adds to, again, everything going straightforward, simple, and hassle-free. Things do alter though, and that's a bit of thinking on your feet, which we'll come to that in a little while.
So trusting each other, adapting to the reality on the ground, and being flexible.
Yeah, so this is a bit prior to that last photo, actually putting the equipment up. So sort of everybody has a job. It's mucking and hands-on. So yeah, the trusting of each other is that somebody isn't going to, in the team, isn't going to make a sudden rash decision against what was briefed. But also on saying that, you also get things that are suddenly changing. So the adaptation and being flexible. But we don't like a lot of communications in shouting. Just my preference, that I like it fairly silent amongst people. So it's me calling the cattle and the sheep at the front. But we use a lot of hand signals. So when we're on the Dale side, we've got vast distances, as other people will do as well. We don't want to be shouting and bawling and adding to the
excitement.
Sort of, yeah, excitement, yes, for the stock. So we can work a lot with hand signals. So it's easier if everybody sort of keeps in line of sight of each other, and then we can just pass on information. If I've spotted something straying off, and I can just gesture across to the next person in the line, if they haven't spotted it. Most cases they have.
How many hand signals do you have?
How many? Like, it varies, Sheila.
Speed up, slow down.
Yeah. There's only around about 3, just left and right, and then sort of come up. So we try and keep it straightforward. Try and keep things simple anyway.
All right. And now your animals, knowing them, and your animals knowing you.
Yeah, this is especially through the following holistic plan grazing practices. when you're having to move your stock every single day, then your stock do get that association. As I said earlier, we don't possess a quad bike. My thing is that they've got to associate it every day the same. So it's no good going around your stock, checking them on a quad bike, and the day you come to move them, doing it on foot, that the animals are very, very acute, and they haven't got that association. That is something they haven't encountered, or it's not encountered on a regular basis. So they're immediately on a bit more of a heightened alertness as to, well, there is something way out going on here. We all speak to our animals quite a lot. You know, it doesn't matter what you say. I don't know that they understand it. It doesn't really matter. It's just the tone of your voice. They're picking up on that tone of your voice, then they know it's yourself. I think they can even pick up on your gait, your walk, and they can recognise you from a way off distance. But that's going on to another subject really, is that altogether. But definitely the association makes it a heck of a lot easier. It's why I always lead the flood, because it's generally me doing the bulk of the livestock work each and every day, and it just that adds to that association for knowing that. You also get to pick up knowing your animals as well, which leads on to this. So you know your timider animals, your bolder animals. So you're looking out for your timider ones that might get bullied out of the way, sort of knocked to the back of your line. But these are just photographs as examples of what we do. The middle one, where I need a haircut with the lockdown. Ben knows when his job's done, and he'll go and jump back in the motor. So as soon as you have a sit down for a drink, he'll come and lop his head over your shoulder and want some fuss. The top left-hand one in the Ford, we don't possess a straw blower. We don't like to bring them in, keep that to absolute minimum amount of time, which we're overcoming as the years progress as well. But because of that, we bed up by hand, so we roll the straw out and fork it, so you're in even closer contact, and that just adds to them understanding you. They can tell when you're in a bad mood for whatever reason that may be, and you get to fuss them. You're at close quarters. Any slight issue, you're there to pick up on it as soon as possible. And the fresh calf down at the bottom, it aids in that process as well. They haven't got that. They don't pose you as a threat as much. You know, they're used to you. We share all our own sheep. Well, the Swaledales anyway, because we're on Wiltshire Arms, which is a self-shedding. But all the Swaledales we share ourselves. So again, you're actually handling your own stock. But sheep, you can't create that bond with them, not like you can with cattle. They have a mindset of their own. Through a good friend of ours, got let down on some grazing, just a small area. But anyway, he had Gobo, the nanny goat, so we ended up taking that on a temporary basis. And just an example of milking her every day. She gets into a routine, and you can let her off the tether, and she'll come and bob up onto that milking stand and milk her, and it's just that daily routine, that association again, and it just makes everything, no matter what form of livestock. I say the bear and the sheep, they're a bit of an exception, but still, they know when we're moving them every day. The sheep call of your voice, they prick their heads up, and they know the electric fence has been opened and moved. So then when we come to do the actual move, going long distances, then it's the same thing. They know they're on with something, and they know they're to move. So.
Great. How about dogs?
Working with dogs. So generally on a day-to-day basis, we don't use a dog. Moving from paddock to paddock, then we have no need. Everything's straight up. As I say, they got into that routine. They're looking for the the next fresh bite, so the next paddock. We always try and move them in the same position, either at the top of the dale or at the bottom of the dale, but whichever dale it's in, then it will remain at that same point that we open and let them through. So the call of our voice, and they will come. So we don't use a dog on a day-to-day basis. On the move, we will bring the Ben into play. But as you saw, he's actually on a band or on a lead. Reason we do that is so that he isn't getting too keen, especially when you've got lambs running with your ewes. Your swale dales, they will turn on the best dog when you've got lambs at foot. So he's just there as just a third hand really for Vicky, just to bring up the rear, and he's on a fairly long, not an extendable lead, but just on a fairly long lead that's fixed, so she can just let it out, bring him in as and well. So if you've got one just going to dart back behind you for whatever reason, you can just let him go, but you're in control. He isn't going to grip or anything like that. But Ben's nearly a point of retiring. We got him from a big hill sheep farmer that was getting too much for his quantity of work, but he just fits into our scenario just perfect.
Technology.
Working with electric fence, it's absolutely marvellous. It's quick, light, adaptable to whatever scenario and temporary situation you need to rig up. So we use the Kiwi Tech electric fencing on a daily basis. That creates our divisional points for our paddocks, but we also utilise it again for when we're doing the moves. If we wanted just a guide fence, we'll just pop that up fairly quick and easy. You could even utilise it going across a road if you want, by utilising like a concrete flag with two holes drilled in it, just to pop your stake in. Obviously you can't get them pressed into the asphalt, but by utilising a couple of little blocks to get your stakes in, you could run your line clean over the road. And again, that's where your forward communication comes in for that. Just so that they can run that out, use a couple of short lengths, run that out ahead, and then you have got that guide. So yeah, technology, utilise it wherever possible, because it does make everything so much easier again.
All right, it's time for some Q&A. Let's see what questions people have.
Yeah, there are a few in the chat, so I'll just read those out before we open up. Is there a best time of day to move the animals?
Yeah, so we try and work it in on a morning, but that is variable. Depends on the direction you wanted to take them in. If it's low sun and you're walking into them, then you'll have to alter your time of day, because stock will not walk into, well, you can try and force them, but they will not walk easily. It goes back to the animal's natural instinct. When they're walking into low sun, they can't see any predators. It's basically blinding for them, and they have a completely different vision than how we see things. So if you're trying to walk them into that, you're just adding to your problems, and it won't go smoothly. You'll get animals trying to turn back, go in a different direction, because they know they're not wanting to walk into that. So the time of day, I mean, we do it on a morning because the bulk of that move is actually going west. So we're walking with the sun either to their side or pretty much behind them most of that actual walk. So as for the other thing is that heavy winds, we would actually contemplate on delaying the move on a day of heavy winds, especially with going through the wooded area. Again, they aren't back to their natural instinct. They can't pick up on the noises of predators quite as easy, so they're more of a high alert because of that. So we try and, it's not easy, but we try and pick a calm day and with more of an overcast day. Even we just actually moved the whole all our cattle to another dale onto some winter grazing the other day, and it was actually raining, but it was perfect. Everything ran so smoothly. So we're to the point we'd actually work in the rain to get the right day rather than working with sun. So the time of day is a very flexible thing.
Interesting. And I have another question. Have you met with other herders who have been moving animals long distances their whole lives?
I haven't actually, no. It's one thing I've never been able to do. So it's all just what I've sort of devised and trial and error. I'm never afraid of giving anything a go. And that just comes back to the planning. I just try and plan and just foresee as much as I possibly can. But no, I've never been with anybody and shadowed anybody doing long moves.
Great. So those are all the questions that haven't been answered so far.
Thank you, Anna. And I'm just curious if Vicky has anything she'd like to add now.
Yeah, there we go.
I have to say, I have a lot of faith in Bracken and what he does, because the first time we were going to move them through the wood, I was like, no way, they're just going to go, and I'm going to be running like a headless chicken trying to bring them back. And so he said, no, they weren't, because of, he always has an explanation, because of the site, the opening, they'll be following the light, so it'll be fine, don't worry. So I think as the person helping the main farmer, you just have to go with what they are telling you, even though you might think, well, I'm not so sure that's going to work, but it has always worked. And it's just a matter of keeping an eye on the animals and watching Bracken too, because there was a time when we moved them, the two of us, they'd come off the big dale and they just were going into the wood, the bridleway, and there were some luscious leaves on the trees, and they couldn't resist having a taste, and I could not get them moving along at all. And from the briefing I knew that I couldn't holler to Bracken because I'd startle all the livestock too, but I just knew that he was watching me and the animals all the time, so he did look back and see that we were having a bit of a rest, so he just helped the herd from moving forward until the cattle had had what they needed, and then we could all move on together. So there was no need to panic or shout or skittle anything. So it is just, I think the more you work together, the more you understand how each other works, and it just gets better and easier. But I love doing it. It's fascinating watching the animals, and they don't really charge or plod, so you have time to just be with them. Sometimes they need pushing on a bit. Once we had a ewe and a lamb that were going very slow, and they needed pushing, so it's a long way to run, but you do it to keep them all moving closely together. But it's a really enjoyable experience when it's all been planned through and you're all following instructions and you trust each other that you're going to stick to those instructions. It's a really fun thing to do, really satisfying, because the Flerd know they're going to new pasture, so they can't wait to get there. So it's a really lovely experience, and lots of people who are on the bridleway and walking love to see it too. So, yeah,
thank you.
I think that's...
Yeah, thank you for adding your experience. I didn't capture it in the video, but on that day, Martin ended up having to pick up a lamb and carry it. How do you deal with the young ones on a move like this?
If we had something very, very fresh, which is our calf, because we calve all year round, again, we would contemplate on delaying. Well, we wouldn't contemplate, we would actually delay the move if it was a newborn calf. Again, if it isn't newborn, you've got a few days growth on it, it's still going to be steady. Sometimes they're very wick and they're up at the front. Depends on the positioning in the herd. It's more obvious with the cattle than it is with your sheep. But if you're if the mother to the calf is a very dominant position in the herd, then she will be up front, her calf's going to be with her. If they're very timid, then they could very well be towards the back, and because your calf's going to then be straggling. It's got that same sort of outlook at that time of its life. So that's what I'm keeping aware of, similar to how Vicky's just explained, where they were browsing at the low-lying trees. Then I would slow the front, and I can do that, but it's low stress cattle handling techniques. So you're using your presence, your body language, and I can just stop the front line and give chance for them to catch up, and then we'll go again. And you'll probably have to do that 2 or 3 times in that distance that we move them on that particular move, just to give it time.
Thank you. All right, we're getting ready to go into breakout rooms now, and we'd like to know, what is your specific challenge in moving livestock? What is an issue that you anticipate having that you would like to work on? You can go ahead and put that into the Mentimeter. And again, that's at www.menti.com, and the code is 4672557.
Bracken and Vicky, in case you haven't seen it in the chat, Indigenous Pastoralism Institute, I can't read the last word, but mentioned that they move their animals through a town about 3 miles with 3 people, a dog, and no temporary fencing. It sounds, I'm intrigued by how.
It'd be amazing to watch that, wouldn't it? See.
Yeah, it's in that situation. Does it say whether there's? Yeah. Around us, it's sort of a pet hate of ours. We've got that people don't have a front gate anymore to their property. That's why everybody used to have front gates, and the postman always used to close the gate behind them, so that when all livestock used to get walked through villages, up the highways, it's just because of the motor vehicle and stock trailers, and they just tend to find it easy to load them up and take them down the highway. The traffic situation has got a lot worse nowadays, and there isn't the respect on the road from people either. They have their busy lives to carry on with, and they want to be on, they don't want to be getting held up. But yes, a good dog, if most people, your problem is you don't want to be upsetting your village you're having to go through, because you must generally be very near hand that village. Sheep aren't too bad, but if they bob into a garden, you've got a good dog. A friend of mine, he's got a dog, and it'll bob clean over a 3-foot high picket fence, garden fence, hurtle that sheep out of there, be it you or tup or whatever, bring it back out and carry on its way again. It is marvellous to see that, but it's a very rare thing now.
All right, well, I think we don't have enough real challenges to actually go to breakout rooms and discuss them. So let's just discuss them live here. So the first one is dealing with the public. And you've talked about that a bit now, but is there something you'd like to add as you consider how to deal with the public?
Yes, I mean, we've had to deal with the public quite a bit on, as I say, that the bridle way and right away is a very busy one. So generally, especially when there's two of us, so we're actually in, you know, we're with the livestock and moving, so we can't be ahead, we can't be forewarning anything. We're just having to deal with them as we come to them, and they are good most of the time. The thing with them, they're very curious. It's something they probably haven't seen, but most of them that we've come across haven't seen it before, so they're wanting to get their phones out, take pictures, and just stand with interest. Well, the way we're actually moving them, the most popular route is for them to walk, is that they come straight towards ourselves, which the animals, both cattle and sheep, are viewing us. We're generally a predatory animal, so they can actually, if I don't get to them first or get a chance to speak with them, which again I'm trying to, initially I'll just use my hand signals, and hopefully they'll respond by asking them to move to the side. Then as I'm getting nearer, I'll ask them to turn around so that they're actually facing the same way as the stock is moving, so basically their backs are to the stock, and try and keep as still as possible, and we have no problems. Generally they are very, very good at you know, abiding what we ask of them.
That's good. This next one, unfenced road open to miles of moorland is the only remaining challenge to moving them over the whole farm. An unfenced road open to miles of moorland. That's their challenge.
The moorland, because of the vastness, is a bit of a different kettle of fish ball game there. More than likely a quad bike, you know, a couple of people on quad bikes in there. Again, for me, it depends on the situation, what they're moving there. If being moorland, it could just be the sheep, I'm presuming. Two good dogs could control that.
Excuse me, Bracken. If the person wants to open the microphone and tell us more, we would welcome that. And then if you have more specific details.
Yeah.
So the person, I don't know if they're still here. Okay, sorry, I interrupted your flow there.
No, that's all right. But yeah, if you've got a couple of good dogs bringing up the rear.
Sorry, they just commented they don't have a mic, so they're working with primitive sheep that don't flock and they can't use dogs with them.
That puts that out of the equation then. I would, they follow me and stay as a group as long as they aren't alarmed. That, well, then on that scenario, just me, without actually being there and seeing it, my initial gut feeling is then that's people being ahead of you. It's just extra labour required, which again, that is the difficult part sometimes, finding that extra labour and then being ahead and just sort of forewarning or even moving. So it's trying to disregard that the points that could be alarmed and scatter the sheep. Some scenarios when I've gone and helped people out, I can come up with, when I can see it, then I can come up with it a lot. The answer quite a bit easier. But yes, if they won't respect a dog, if they just scatter on the sight of a dog or the use of a dog, then it does add to the the problems there. So that's the only thing just initially coming to me would be trying to do it in reverse and make sure that we're disregarding them obstacles ahead of the situation, because if they'll follow you quite well, then that would be that's sort of a big advantage against most sheep, which aren't, unless you get onto the pet sheep.
Now the next challenge is cattle brushing past cars.
Yeah, again, that would be just trying to get them a little bit further away, or pull them to the side of the road if you've got good wide verges. Again, it's either get the cattle as far to one side, utilising a hedge side if this is taking them down the highway, utilise a hedge and get the cattle running on sort of half the road, quarter of the road, and the actual grass verge, and then you can get your cars. The person at the front can be getting the cars moved as far to the side, and just keep that occasion to an absolute minimum. We haven't had a situation of that. We can use our own vehicle, and the generally, unless you're trying to bunch them really tight together, then we don't have pose that problem. We'll leave our vehicle, as I say, to block off a little right of way which comes on the main line, and we've never had a wing mirror or anything taken off. There's just Vicky or whoever's at the back of the move understanding not to pressurise anything too much and get them to bunch up, because if I'm not moving on and letting them come forward, then they're going to start to, obviously the line's getting broader then, and anything they're coming past, there is potential they could be brushing past. But yeah, if it's up the highway, then I would try and take the stock down the verge as much as possible. Around where we are in North Yorkshire, we have quite a lot of wide verges on our B roads until you get down onto single track ways, and then get the cars. I know some cars don't like pulling over whatsoever. They like to keep the car on the tarmac. But again, that's why I like to be up the front if you've got anything like that, and I can quite calmly give instructions to people, where I've helped a farmer in the past move, and he doesn't like any form of confrontation with people whatsoever. He would prefer it that I go up and explain and speak and what have you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm going to skip ahead then, and let's ask our audience, what is one key insight that you are taking away from today's presentation? And I find this a useful question because sometimes we even learn from people as they reflect back to us. So take a minute here. What's one key insight that you take away from today?
Can I share something?
Yeah, yes, please.
I've had a few private messages, and there's something interesting that's come out. So when it was asked whether you'd met with other herders who have moved their livestock long distances all their life, and you said no, that raises a question around, why haven't you been able to? Is it because you couldn't find people, or people that you are aware of that do this weren't available to talk with you? So I guess there's a question in there around, are there communities of support to support in knowledge sharing and support new entrants into farming? Because you've been doing this for 3 years, I think you said. So just something around that. Why is it that you haven't been able to connect with other herders that have moved animals long distance?
Quite a number of combined reasons, really. I aren't very techie for researching or anything like that. It's all sort of word of mouth, and until I met Vicky, I was completely doing everything on my own. So I don't have any time, and never been on holiday until 4 years since at all in my life. Never been out of the country, and I would think this will actually, to get a good insight into open spaces as well, will be is probably done a lot more abroad. So I would think there is people out there. I just haven't had the time or the know-how to look up and research and try and contact and make connection with people doing similar things.
People around us aren't moving their cattle along the road at all.
No, we have a big, well, 2 farms, but they're owned by the same farmer, and they actually just go, well, it's only literally half a mile up the road, and they put every single animal into a trailer to drive it half a mile and come back in, and it's on a very quiet road that's very infrequently used. There'll be maybe 6 vehicles a day use the road, and they still don't even walk the stock up the road.
I'd like to add to the answer, and we visit a lot of farms, and I would say the vast majority, you know, they're making a transition. They're making a transition from set stock grazing over to holistic planned grazing, where they will be moving animals, and they may then encounter for the very first time a long move. And probably in a lot of cases, people would just put the animals into a vehicle, is my guess. They wouldn't even attempt what Bracken and Vicky are doing. And then the other thing is they have a lot of problems moving animals. That's what I observe. They'll use vehicles, they'll make loud sounds, they do get injured, the animals get injured, and the people get injured. And so when Christopher and I were visiting Vicky and Bracken this summer, and they presented this opportunity, we just jumped on it because we never get to see skillful moving of animals long distance. So I think the other answer to the question is it might be kind of a lost skill. There really aren't people doing a lot of herding nowadays. And that's probably another reason. And that's one of the reasons I wanted them actually to present at this conference, because I think they're doing something quite unique.
Thank you, Shayla. There's just somebody put a comment about the dairy farmers walk their cattle a long way. Yeah, the most common thing would be that the dairy industry that will still, after milking, the cattle will go out. I know a lot of the dairy farmers all around ourselves, they're actually on the walk on some fairly long distances over their own land, and they have their own trackways put in. And of course, the dairy cow, again, it's back to the association and routine. They're doing that milking twice a day, every single day. And again, the dairy farm, which is closest to us, they stood there at the gate, and the farmer, all he has to do is just go and open the gate, and he has 2 gates which actually close off the highway, one at either side, and just waits for them just to all walk across. He has no shouting, no preparation to do. It's just routine. But yes, it is does still go on the dairy side of things now.
Now, you got to go on the low stress livestock handling training with Miriam Parker this summer, and I wonder if you picked up anything new there, or if she was more reinforcing what you already knew.
For me, Shayla, yeah, it was just reinforcing what I already knew and been practicing without realising it. It's sort of, again, I've done stock work for other conventional farmers, and it got highlighted to me once that they'd never ever seen their stock moved how I moved them, and that was on my own, and he was just watching off at afar. But yeah, we took Tamsin, who works with us there, and she picked up an awful lot about the animal behaviour and the type of systems that can be used and adapted to make the whole handling situation a lot easier.
Great. So thank you for the person who said walking through the woods experience and why it is so. All right.
Can I make other
Yes,
point, sorry,
yes,
that's
please,
been
Anna.
raised in the private chat. When you said that this is a forgotten practice, just to point out that in the majority world or the global south, it's very widely still practiced. So there's potential opportunities for learning there. I guess it comes back to Bracken's point that these practices are often used abroad, but how we facilitate that knowledge exchange, it opens up lots of opportunities there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Anna, I'm glad you mentioned that. Another person who's gone through our training, his name is Lennart Klassen. He's German but living in France. And he he doesn't anymore, but he used to shepherd, I think it was about several thousand sheep. And his whole area was a 400-kilometer area. In that 400 kilometers was like the diameter of the circle that he would shepherd them in. And he's done several videos on his experience. And in my last slide, I'm going to have our YouTube channel, and you would be able to see Lennart Klassen shepherding in France. So you're right, in other countries it's more common. All right, well, thank you for who's told us they're now quite confident in moving animals long distance. Thank you for that. And I'm just going to jump to Vicky and Bracken's garden in North Yorkshire, which was so beautiful this summer when we were there. And they're very happy to help you. So here are their contact details. There's the email you can reach them at, and there's their website. They're really happy to talk with you further. And tell us, where do you sell your meat? So if people are interested, they know where to buy your meat.
So we direct sell all our produce. 2 years ago, we invested in our own on-farm cold store and butchery. So we've, thanks to Tamsin, we've got the website up and running now. So there's an online shop. But we do very much, which has always been our route that we've mainly wanted to take, which is, again, the actual direct contact with the people. So we do a lot of markets, and we get that face-to-face contact with people. We get that communication. We can ask answer any questions that they're asking. So that's still our most enjoyable way of selling our produce is by market. And just literally a very, very new thing. We've opened a small farm shop, actually in what was our front room. So again, to try and get people to come to the farm. It's another way they can come to the farm. They can experience a bit of what our daily routine, and as well as purchasing some produce. And we're supporting other local regenerative.
Or not so local.
Well, so yeah, some of them not so local, but that's people that's on our same ethos and way of thinking, produce.
So it sounds like you welcome visitors.
Yeah,
we do. Yes.
Yeah.
We love
that's
to talk
to people and to hear where they are on their journey, and just to discuss a bit about what we do, why we do it, and who we're learning from, because we're learning from a lot of people all the time.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Well, thank you, both of you. And I just wanted to give you a few additional resources. Our 3LM YouTube channel is just chock-a-block with tons of videos on regenerative agriculture and holistic management. And I encourage you to sign up, subscribe to it, because we're always putting new videos out there. And sign up to the 3LM newsletter, because we put good information out there, and it's not just advertising. I try to put some informative information every time in it. And you can contact me at info@3lm.network, or my telephone number there, 07446 780081. And I welcome your questions. Thank you so much, Bracken and Vicky.
Thank you.
And thank you, Anna.
Yeah,
You're welcome. And thank you, Sheila,
My
for facilitating. moderating it and taking us through everything.
Yeah, my pleasure. Is there anything to add from the chat?
Just lots of thank yous.
All right.
And I don't know where, sorry, I can't read your whole name, but Indigenous Pastoralism Institute. I feel like there's maybe a connection to be made there between all of you.
Yeah.
So please share your contact in the chat if you're happy to.
Sure. Well, whoever that person is, we welcome you to contact Vicky and Bracken or myself, and we'll be happy to connect with you and see what more can be done.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.